Like Tom Brady, Gardner Minshew slid to round 6. Unlike
look at
Tom
that
Brady,
transition. Boom.
Gardner Minshew got thrust into the fray week 1 of his rookie season when Nick Foles breaks a collarbone against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Minshew finished the year as the starter of the Jaguars. He was the starter in 2020. They were bad enough that he was no longer the starter because that was when Trevor Lawrence came to town. He's bounced around the league ever since then, played a lot in Indianapolis last year. The players loved him, got to the cusp of the postseason, came down to the Saturday night game against the Texans for the division crown. Minshew signs with the Raiders in the offseason, and Minshew has done enough to convince Antonio Pierce that it should be him and not second-year pro Aiden O'Connell as the week 1 starter. So I'm not surprised by the outcome.
Right.
I'm not. Yep. Although I think there could be a higher ceiling for O'Connell that he's not going to get a chance
I would agree.
to access.
Right.
But the better guy right now is Minshew.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, I guess I was a little surprised that they did it last night or yesterday. Right, I thought we maybe would get through preseason game number 3. I know he had alluded to it right after the game that it would happen in the next few days, so that kind of caught me by surprise that it happened so quickly. But I think in the big picture of things, I'm like you. I'm not shocked. I mean, 1, they're paying Gardner Minshew $10+ million a year right now to do this. 2, he's more experienced. There's no question about that. For Aiden O'Connell, it's year 2. It's another offensive coordinator, right? So because of that, the veteran player always has the advantage in that department there. He's been around the league. He knows different offenses, so he can correlate in his brain a little bit better than a young guy who's like, what? I just got in the NFL, and now I got to learn another offense? So a lot of advantages that way towards Gardner Minshew. The experience of knowing how to practice, training camp, right? The veteran guys know how to manipulate practice, the stats. They start to realize what the defense checks to and do that, why the rookie or the young quarterback still figuring out things of their own offense. Gardner Minshew was like, I heard the safety check to that yesterday. They're going to play quarters here. I'm going to have the post over the top. Boom, I look great, right? Boom. So all of those things pointed in the favor of Gardner Minshew. And it's Antonio Pierce, his first full year. He wants to get off to a fast start, and he probably feels like the experienced guy gives him the best chance to do that.
Here is Antonio Pierce entering his first full season as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders on why he's opted to go with the veteran over the second-year player.
Yeah, experience, the operation, the processing, just everything we saw in practice. Some of it showed up in the games. A lot of stuff we can get better at. I don't think anything here is a finished product, but based off of where we want to go in the first quarter of the season, we feel like Gardner gives us the best opportunity. His personality is infectious. His energy is infectious. His leadership is infectious. Things of improvement, footwork, in the pocket, staying on script. There is some magic about him when he does break the pocket and does his thing, but there's a lot of times where, if the first, second read is there, we got to let it rip. So he understands that, and more importantly, taking care of the football.
Boy, Antonio Pierce doing the Simmsism, like pulling the cord on a lawnmower, and he finally got there. Infectious. And we don't mean to criticize. It's just kind of funny because it's infectious sounds right. To our point from last week. Some of these just sound right. And he knew something wasn't right. So infectious. He got there.
He got there. But I think that's part of it, too. Gardner Minshew, the pizzazz, right? We all know that, what he brings to the table and the energy that way. Certainly seems like he's got more of that than a Aiden O'Connell at this point of his career. So I do think that rubs off on the football team. And then he does have the ability to make off-script plays a little bit more. He's scrappy. He knows how to play. He knows how to play the position. He's a natural that way. Now, is he perfect? No. And I think, that's what I found interesting about Antonio Pierce's conversation. I mean, again, this guy got named the starter after throwing for less than 50% in preseason game number 2, right? I mean, let's be serious. It was 10 for 21. It wasn't like he took the starting job by the reins and was like, this is mine, right? He did good things. I get that. But if you looked at some of the more impressive throws of the game the other night, I would go, man, I think maybe Aiden O'Connell might have had just as many. And then you couple that with week 1 along with it. Right? But I think it's the hey, it's early in the year. We're going to see some crazy defenses. We don't know what you're going to get early in the year. He'll know how to handle our offense. He knows how to manage a game a little bit, right? Within that early in the year, the defenses do some stuff you're not prepared for. He's got a little off-schedule playmaking ability. So all of those things, I think they looked at that and went, okay, let's do that instead of the vice versa. Let's throw out the young buck, have him be all flustered early, and then maybe we can't ever turn back to him this year. Let's go with the guy we know can handle this. And if he doesn't play well the first few 5-6 weeks, then we got a guy we can say come off the bench and go, hey, you should be comfortable. We know what we're doing now. Let's see what you got. And I think this is the proper approach by the Raiders. I would agree with going this way.
And seeing Minshew out there wearing number 15 for the Raiders reminds me of your guy Jeff Hostetler.
Yeah, right.
Aiden O'Connell's going to put some shaving
cream. Get him in there.
Now that he's on the job. But, a lot of times with these none of the above quarterback competitions, all due respect to the contenders, winning the job means you've won the
first right to get benched.
First guy benched.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And you feel like that's going to happen at some point unless the Raiders end up being collectively a lot better this year than we expect them to be. And it's nothing against them. They're in the division, if you haven't heard, with the Chiefs. They're in the conference with a long list of high-end contenders that the Raiders don't seem to be ready to compete with. And maybe they will be. Maybe Antonio Pierce is going to spin some straw into gold here, but they just don't have the same overall wall-to-wall, position-by-position talent
That's right.
that the best teams in the conference do. So it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, it is going to be a challenge. You don't look at them. We're not going Super Bowl window. I don't think any of us are even going playoffs. So that's probably where they lean on Minshew, too. Just here's early part of the year, that playmaking ability. He's got some veteran receivers he can get on the same page with, and Adams and Jacoby Myers, right? But we got offensive line questions about them a little bit. You got a new running back, right? The defense is good, but again, am I going to sit here and go, oh my gosh, I'm blown away by what they got? No, I mean, Max Crosby's got to be him. We know Christian Wilkins has got to be special as a new free agent. Can they get Tyree Wilson, the first rounder from last year, who was supposed to be the next Myles Garrett-ish type of player for them and had the broken foot? Can they get him to, show up and be worthy of that top 10 pick? Those are all things that we question about the Raiders. So I don't think you're wrong in saying what you're saying, and we'll see where it goes and see if they can surprise people under Antonio Pierce.
And really, it's that first group of games. They come out of it at 500. Whether that's storm, because it's not really a full-blown hurricane, but they have to go to the Chargers to start the season, where it's basically a home game for the Raiders, going to SoFi Stadium and playing the Chargers. So, and from a talent standpoint, maybe they can pull that one off. Depends on the health of Justin Herbert and how quickly Jim Harbaugh can get them ready to go. Going to Baltimore, not going to be easy.
That's right.
Panthers, that's one they should win. If they lose to the Panthers, we've got a problem in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And then they play the Browns the following week. So 2-2, I think, would be a good, solid base, and then we see where they go from there for the first 4 games.
You would hope so. Hopefully you can get out of those first 4 games, build a little character, continuity, start to realize what you are as a team and scheme that way, and make something of it. But I think the schedule plays part in why Gardner Minshew's the starter too. Just like Antonio Pierce said, the experience. We're on the road 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, you're right. There'll be a lot of Raiders fans there. We know that, but it's still on the road. It's a different environment. And then going to Baltimore in week 2, right, where there's a chance that they could be 0-1 coming back from playing the Chiefs in the opener, and they'll be extra pissed off, right? So there's that like possibility there. And I think those are probably the reasons they go with Gardner Minshew, and we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, I mean, how they start, how they look by the time we get to week 6 and all that, I don't think that Gardner Minshew is going to have the longest leash in the world here, right? I think you and I both agree. First 4, 5, 6 games, there'll be an evaluation there. Where's our team? How well is he playing? Ooh, we're 2-4. That's not good enough, and he's not that good, and he's not playing that good. Well, we got Aiden O'Connell. Let's see if he can jumpstart us a little bit. And I would envision that being a possibility if it goes that way.
I got 2 more points before we move on.
Yeah.
And one is something I just thought of. You see the game against the Chargers right out of the gates. Remember the Thursday night last December 14, 63-21. Got everybody fired for the Chargers the next day. Tom Telesco, who's now the GM of the Raiders, out. Head coach Brandon Staley, out the very next day. How much of that carries over for the Chargers? And I hate the whole we want revenge. They just did their jobs. They came and it worked and it was a landslide. But how much of that do you think carries over to this next meeting?
I don't think a lot. I don't. Because of the coaching change and all that, it really almost, wipes the slate clean. Now, there might be a few guys on the Chargers or remember a few guys on the Raiders who were maybe a little too boisterous when it got out of hand or were just saying some things or maybe felt like they were getting cheap shotted and they might have their bullseye on somebody to get a little payback. But I think all in all, it's just a different mentality with the Chargers. It's a new coach. He doesn't give a damn about that game and anything there, and he's trying to set forth his own new agenda there. So I don't think there's a ton of carryover with that one, Mike.
Well, and Harbaugh started his coaching career with the Raiders, and they didn't seem to be all that interested in him when it was time to hire a coach.
No, they
and he
did
ends
not.
up with the Chargers.
Right.
So I have a feeling that's going to gnaw at him more than what happened last year. Hell, the thing that happened last year gave him the job.
That's what I was going to say. He's not going to be that pissed at them. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I was literally going to say that. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest point.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.